She slid past me with her coat half on, eyes already on the door. I was holding a warm paper bag from the Thai place, keys still dangling from my finger. Again? I asked. I figured we'd eat. She glanced at the bag, then at me, mouth tilted. I'm eating with the girls. You can turn on your football and feed yourself. She didn't wait for my answer. The door clicked. I stood in the quiet kitchen, pad thai cooling, TV remote right where I'd left it like a loyal dog. If I'd known where it was headed, I'd have taped that first line to the fridge as a warning label. I put the food on plates anyway. Habit beats pride on a Tuesday. I texted her, enjoy, and got back a thumbs up. Not even a word. The first forkful tasted like I was chewing a receipt. The next night she was with the girls again. Same the night after. It stopped being a schedule and turned into a joke I wasn't invited to hear. I'm not a needy guy. I run a small mechanical shop. My days are noise and grease and decisions. I don't chase people. But when your own wife starts treating the house like a locker room, you either ask questions or pretend the silence is music. Friday I tried simple. How late should I expect you? I asked at the doorway. She was already in a dress that didn't belong to the word girls. Don't wait up. Not my plan. I just want to know if we're still pretending to be married this week. Her mouth twitched. Don't start. Not starting. Checking the scoreboard. She rolled her eyes. I need space. We've talked about this. We haven't, I said. You talked. You delivered. I'm doing follow-up. She laughed, small and sharp. You're being dramatic. Dramatic would be changing the locks. I'm just asking for a time. She picked up her bag. I'll text. She didn't. Around midnight, the front door opened. She moved like a tenant trying not to wake the landlord. I washed out my coffee mug, set it upside down in the rack, and didn't say a word. If she wanted a quiet house, she was going to get a quiet house. Saturday morning, I set coffee on the counter for both of us. She breezed past, lifted her phone, and said, I'm meeting Haley and Brooke. Brunch. I made coffee. I'm not hungry. It's coffee. Then I'm not thirsty. She waited for me to react. I didn't. I took my mug, sat at the table, pulled out my work calendar, and started drawing lines. What's that? She asked. Boundaries, I said. This week I'm on late shifts. I'll be home after 9 most nights. You don't need to plan around me, and I won't plan around you. Her eyebrows rose. You're mad. I'm organized. I tapped the page. Also, I'm moving my personal money out of the joint account. Bills stay covered. Your fund doesn't. She blinked. Excuse me. If we're housemates, we're housemates. Rent's paid, lights on, pantry stocked. Spa nights and mystery dinners are on you. That's petty. It's adult. She stood with one hand on the chair. So this is punishment. It's clarity. You said you want space. Here's space, time, money, and evenings. You get yours, I get mine. She stared exactly 2 seconds too long, then smiled. Fine. Do whatever makes you feel big. I already feel my size, I said. Reduce your key ring. The garage fob is now code locked. I'll text your code. I finished my coffee and put the mug in the sink. Enjoy brunch. She left a few minutes later with heels that made a point. I watched the driveway a beat longer than I care to admit, then called my foreman and pushed my Monday routine forward a day. If home isn't where the plan is, you take the plan somewhere else. That afternoon, on a guess that girls lived near downtown, I drove a circuit. I'm not a tail guy, but sometimes a man wants facts more than dignity. I circled the wine bar, the trendy taco place, the river walk. Nothing. I ended up back at the shop, changed the oil on a Chevy I'd been putting off, and told myself I was being stupid. Sunday we had plans. My buddy Nate's cookout. We'd RSVP'd as a pair. At 3, she came down the stairs in jeans and a look that said bare minimum participation. You ready? I asked. I think I'll skip. It's Nate. We already told him. She pulled a face. Tell him I'm tired. Tell him yourself, I said, and handed her my phone with Nate's contact open. She didn't take it. Why are you pressing this? Because you keep opting out of anything with my name on it. That's not true. You want data? Monday girls, Tuesday girls, Wednesday late at the office, Thursday girls, Friday something something, Saturday brunch. Today we're going to my friends, and suddenly it's nap time. She folded her arms. You don't make the rules. I do for my life. And I'm going. If you change your mind, you know the address. She smirked. Tell them I said hi. At the cookout, Nate clapped me on the back. Where's Madison? At the spa, I said deadpan. On a Sunday? His wife, Jess, raised an eyebrow. She's broadening her horizons. Jess pressed her lips together. You good? I'm civil. Nate looked around, lowered his voice. Man, if something's off. Something's off, I cut in. I'm handling it. We ate. People joked. The world didn't fall apart because my wife skipped a burger. But when someone asked where she'd been lately, and I said, out, the way the question hung told me I wasn't the only one noticing. I filed it. I don't ignore smoke alarms just because I can't see flames. I got home at 9. The house was dark. It stayed dark until 2, when she came in and dropped her shoes near the door like a breadcrumb trail to innocence. You good? I asked from the hallway. She startled. You scared me. Not the goal. You're up late. Early starts, I said. We should talk schedules. Not now, she said. I'm exhausted. Tomorrow at 7, before I leave. I flipped the hallway light. Be there. What if I'm asleep? Set an alarm. She stared, measuring whether I meant it. Then shrugged. Fine. 7 came. She showed up, hair tied up, face closed. This is how it's going to go, I said. House expenses stay joint. Personal expenses don't. Dinners aren't assumed. If you want time with me, put it on the calendar. If you're out past midnight, shoot a text. Not asking permission. Just basic courtesy. That's controlling. It's the opposite. You get maximum freedom, minimum assumptions. And what do you get? Information, respect, or enough data to make new decisions. She sat without asking and traced a ring of coffee on the table with her finger. I could say the same back to you. You could, I said, and you'd get the same from me. So if I'm out, you're out. Seems fair. She looked up. Are you going to follow me? Wasn't planning on it. Then let it go. She stood. You're making a thing out of nothing. Then it should be easy to meet halfway. She hesitated, then sighed. I'll try. Happy. I don't do happy on command. But I heard you. She put a hand on my shoulder on her way out, casual, like we were co-workers finishing a meeting. It was nothing. It was also more attention than I'd gotten in a week. That evening she cooked. Actually cooked. Chicken, rice, vegetables. She poured me a drink. She touched my arm when she passed the salt like we were still us. This is nice, she said. It is, I agreed. I know I've been distant. Work's been heavy. Haley's going through stuff. I'm listening. I'll scale back the nights out. Good. She smiled with her mouth, not her eyes. Maybe we can do that lake weekend you wanted. Maybe, I said, and I meant it the way a cop means slow down. We cleared the dishes. She slid closer on the couch and rested her head against my shoulder for a minute like she remembered what home felt like. 10 minutes later, she checked her phone and said, I told Haley I'd swing by. She's having a thing. I'll be quick. How quick? Couple hours. Put it on the calendar. She rolled her eyes, but she typed. You happy now? I'm informed. She left at 9. At 9:10 my phone pinged with a calendar update. Haley's, back by midnight. At 12:40, nothing. At 1:20, a text. Stayed longer. Don't wait up. I stared at it the way people stare at a bad car part they keep reinstalling. Then I grabbed my jacket and keys. I drove to Haley's. Lights off. Clean driveway. No cars. I pulled up to the curb and killed the engine. A porch light across the street flicked on. A neighbor peered through a curtain. I waved like an idiot and pulled away. On the way home, I stopped at the shop. I did work I didn't need to do. Wrenches don't lie, and right then I needed something in my hands that wasn't lying. The next day, I moved my stuff to the guest room. No speech, no drama. I folded shirts, carried them down the hall, set them in the dresser, and texted her the Wi-Fi changes and the new garage code. The note read, nothing personal, just adapting. She replied with a thumbs down. Cute. That evening she tried to bait me. So that's it. You're moving out of our room. I'm reducing confusion. You're punishing me. I'm setting expectations. I pointed at the calendar on the fridge. You're out again? She lifted her chin. Girls' night. Which girls? You don't need names. If I'm your husband, I do. If I'm your roommate, I don't. Pick a column. She took a breath. Haley and Brooke. Happy. Text me at midnight. I said. If you forget, don't bother coming back that night. I'll assume you picked a different house. Her eyes flashed. You don't get to say that. I just did. She scoffed, grabbed her bag, and left. At 12:10, my phone stayed quiet. At 12:30, silence. At 1:10, a message, phone died. Crashed at Haley's. No apology. No, you were right. Just a memo from someone filing forms in a department I hadn't applied to join. The next morning, I turned my initiative outward. At the shop, I called a quick meeting. Nate, my foreman Luis, and Ellie from the front desk. New hours, I told them. I'm shifting to earlier days. Nights are for me. Luis, you'll run late shifts with overtime. Ellie, any personal calls for me, take a message. No drop-ins. Nate looked at me. Home. Rearranging furniture. I said. We're good on payroll. All good. Ellie said, eyes kind. You're sure you're okay? I will be, I said. We're done with chaos. We do schedules now. At lunch, Haley texted me. That was new. We weren't close, outside of group plans. Can we talk? She wrote. About what? I asked. It's important. Brooke too. Not on text. Name the place. They picked a coffee shop near the university. Neutral, public, too bright for nonsense. When I walked in, they were together at a back table, both looking like they'd decided something heavy and didn't love it. Haley spoke first. We're not here to stir anything, she said. Brooke folded her hands. But we can't watch this anymore. Watch what? I said, even though my stomach already knew. Haley passed me a phone. Open was a thread, photos, screenshots. Madison's name at the top. Words. Plenty of them. Not poetry. Logistics. Names. Times. Inside jokes that weren't inside my house. Poses with a man I recognized from old stories. Her ex from before me. His arm. Her hand. A bar I knew. A park I'd shared with her once like it was ours. Brooke said, quiet. We told her we wouldn't be part of this. She laughed. Haley looked guilty. We should have come sooner. She started bragging. About you working so hard. About planning to take what you built because, quote, you'll do anything to make it right. About moving back with him once it's done. I scrolled. I stopped on a line that read like a punchline to a bad joke. He brought dinner, and I left. He'll eat with ESPN. A photo of Madison's wine glass and a man's watch. Time-stamped. That night. Why are you showing me this? I asked. Because you're not stupid, Brooke said. And because she crossed a line. We don't co-sign it. Haley added, we're not saints. We enabled the first weeks because she said it was nothing. But it's not nothing. And she's proud of it. I looked at both of them. You know I'm going to act. Good, Brooke said. You can't mention us, Haley added quickly. Please. You won't exist in the story, I said. You spoke up. That's what I'll remember. I put the phone down, pulled my own out, and texted Madison one sentence. We need to talk tonight at 7. She responded instantly. Busy. My reply. Not optional. Her return. Fine. I looked back at Haley and Brooke. Thank you. Brooke's mouth pressed into a line. Don't thank us. Do something clean. I will. On my way out, Haley touched my sleeve. You're not alone, okay? I know, I said. And I meant it. At 7, she came home with a face like a courtroom sketch. What's the emergency? She asked, setting her bag down by the door. Sit, I said. I don't like commands. Consider it a calendar appointment. She sat. I didn't waste time. You've been meeting up with someone from your past, I began. You used your friends as cover. You posted about it to those same friends. You've told people you plan to take what I've worked for and leave. Her expression barely shifted. Who told you that? Doesn't matter. It does. Because people lie. Screenshots don't. She leaned back. So what now, detective? Now we're done. Tomorrow I'm moving forward with ending this. I'm keeping the house and the shop. You keep what you brought in. I'll cover a clean exit so we don't drag it out. That's my line. You don't get to decide that. I just did. She laughed. You think you're going to keep everything? I think the truth has weight, I said. I don't need to throw it. I just have to set it down in the right place. She sneered. You'll come crawling back. You don't handle empty rooms well. I actually handle them fine, I said. They don't talk back. She shook her head. You're making a mistake you'll regret. I regret wasting this past month pretending we still had a team, I said. The rest I can live with. She stood up so fast the chair legs rubbed the tile. You're arrogant. I'm awake, I said. Your code for the garage changes tomorrow. You can text if you need something. Keep it to logistics. You're unbelievable. Work on new material, I said, and walked to the guest room. The next 2 weeks were boring by design. I kept my head down and checked boxes. I met with my accountant and separated what needed separating. I changed passwords. I set up a storage unit and offered to have movers bring her things. She refused, then accepted, then refused again. I didn't argue either way. When she sent long texts with old photos attached late at night, I answered with the same sentence. Please keep this to logistics. At the shop, Nate pulled me aside. How's the storm? Drizzling, I told him. I packed an umbrella. He snorted. You're a colder man than me. Colder is better than foolish. Madison tried the nice route. She texted, I made dinner. Come home early. I replied, I have plans. She left a key lime pie in the fridge with a sticky note, your favorite. I ate a slice and threw the note away. She leaned into sweetness like a pushy salesperson. I didn't buy. Then came phase 2. She showed up at my shop with a bag of takeout, smiling like we were dating. I wanted to surprise you. You did, I said. We're in the middle of a break job. She held up the bag. I thought maybe we could talk. We've done our talking. People fix things, she said. I'm not the only one who's been distant. I'm sure I could have been warmer. None of that cancels the facts. She put the bag on my workbench, ignoring the sign that said no food. Louise glanced over from the lift, reading the air. I looked at her, then at the bench. You can leave it, I said. Thank you. I want to eat with you. I'm not available. Wow, she said too loud. Ellie looked up from the counter. 2 customers glanced our way. So that's it. Cold shoulder until you win? I wiped my hands and kept my voice even. We don't do scenes in my place of work. If you want decency, give it. If you want to be loud, pick a sidewalk. She stared, cheeks tight, then scooped up the bag and walked out. Louise breathed. You good, boss? Better than yesterday, I said. The next morning, a moving truck idled in our driveway. Men loaded her boxes while she watched from the porch with crossed arms. I'd arranged the unit, paid for the first month, labeled everything. She tried to bait me into a speech. I signed where I needed, nodded to the movers, and went back to sorting tools in the garage. 1 week later, the paperwork was signed. Clean. No fights over stuff. Facts weigh what they weigh. She packed the last of her things and left an envelope with house keys on the counter. No note. Fine. A month passed. Then 2. I slept. I worked. I played cards on Thursdays with Nate and Louise in the back office after close. Sometimes Haley and Brooke would text to check in. I'd send a thumbs up like a caveman and then actually answer because they'd earned real words. On the first day of the 3rd month, a message came in from an unknown number. I opened it. Her tone was grand, even in text. If you apologize for how you handled things, it read, I'll consider coming back. I laughed the way you do when a TV character says something dumb and you realize it's based on someone real. I took a screenshot and sent it to Haley and Brooke with, you two called it. Haley's response landed in 3 seconds. Told you. She'll show up. Want to make it interesting? Brooke chimed in. Let us handle the door. Define interesting, I wrote. Haley, we'll swing by tonight after yoga. 7 p.m. She'll probably pick the same time. We'll be here. If she knocks, we'll open. We'll act like the 3 of us share a calendar. She needs to actually see the door closed. I considered. You're sure? Brooke, 100%. She already floated to us that she might give you another chance. We shut it down. Haley, we also have sushi cravings. I smiled at the screen. Fine. Come at 6:30. I'll handle dinner plans. We straightened the living room like normal humans do before guests. I set out plates, nothing fancy. At 6:30, the doorbell. Haley and Brooke slipped in with bottled water and grins that meant trouble in the best way. You okay? Haley asked under her breath. Never better, I said. Brooke looked around. Your place looks lighter. Objects don't argue, I said. At 7:10, a car engine idled outside. The bell rang. Brooke raised her eyebrows. Showtime. I nodded at the door. You two are up. They opened it in a choreographed way that said they'd thought this through. Madison stood there with a bottle of wine and a paper bag that smelled like rice vinegar. Her face changed colors like a cheap mood ring. What is this? She demanded. Haley leaned against the frame like she lived there. Evening. Brooke took the bag from Madison's hand with a smile, so polite it cut. Oh, amazing. This is exactly what we were missing. Madison blinked. Where is he? Haley turned her head. Babe, you good in the kitchen? I'm great. I answered, loud enough to carry, like the world's calmest sitcom husband. Madison's eyes widened. You've got to be kidding me. Brooke held up the bottle. Pinot. Perfect. Madison took a step forward. You two don't live here. Tonight we do, Haley said. And tomorrow night we might again. You never know with friends. Madison's voice went sharp. What does this mean? Brooke's smile didn't shift. It means the door isn't yours anymore. She tried to push past them. Haley moved a half-inch. The message was plenty. He belongs to me. Madison snapped. Too loud for the porch. I walked into view, not rushing. Incorrect. She stared. You think this is funny? I think it's precise, I said. You sent me terms. I declined. We're done. She held up the bag with a broken laugh. I brought dinner. So did they, I said. And they were invited. Haley tilted her head. We're going to eat while it's still warm, okay? Madison's mouth opened. Closed. Her face did the math and choked on it. You're all insane. Maybe, Brooke said, but we're eating. Madison looked at me one last time, like a stage actor waiting for a line I wasn't going to throw. I gave her the only one that mattered. Doors closed, I said. Take care. Haley and Brooke eased the door shut. It clicked. The knock that followed was loud, then louder, then a string of words from Madison I won't repeat. We let the knocks fade on their own. Cars went by. A dog barked. Real life did what it always does, kept moving. We plated the sushi and poured water. The three of us sat on my couch like grown-ups who'd been through a dumb war and were ready to talk about anything else. Haley raised her chopsticks. To dumb wars. May we retire early, I said. Brooke laughed. She had the exact expression I pictured. Her sense of certainty is a hell of a drug, I said. We ate. We told stories that weren't about her. At one point, Haley asked, You sure you're okay? I'm better than okay, I said. I'm free. After that night, everything got simple. No more debates in my own kitchen. No more double calendars. The house learned to breathe. I kept the guest room because I liked it. I replaced a few pieces of furniture, not out of spite, but because the old ones had memories welded onto them that made the room tilt. The shop took off. With my schedule fixed, we added another bay. Nate joked, divorce diet for the business, and I told him to quit naming things. Luis upped the output on late shifts and started saving for a place of his own. Ellie took over ordering and freed me from a pile of nonsense I didn't need to touch. When you stop wasting energy shoring up a broken wall, it's surprising how fast you can build something that holds. I started having people over again. Not parties, quiet dinners where adults told normal jokes and went home at a reasonable time. Haley and Brooke were regulars, which would have sounded insane 6 months before. We didn't talk about Madison unless one of them needed to unload a story about how she'd tried to recruit them back to her side, and they told her they were booked that decade. A Saturday in early fall, I was installing a new grill out back when a neighbor wandered over. Greg's a retired firefighter with a talent for being around when something fixable appears. That thing's too nice for one person, he said, eyeing the grill. People come by, I said. They look like they enjoy themselves. They do. Greg looked toward the street. She hasn't been around. She moved, I said. Heard she headed out of state with a guy who had bigger plans than a mortgage. Greg nodded, quiet. Sometimes losing is winning. Sometimes it's just losing the wrong thing, I said. He grunted his agreement and handed me a socket wrench. A month later, word came down through the grapevine that Madison wasn't having the fairy tale time she'd pictured. I didn't chase details. I wasn't collecting victories. I'd heard enough to make simple sentences. The new city was expensive. The old boyfriend's big plans looked smaller up close. She posted photos that tried too hard to be carefree. The friends who'd fed her stories were suddenly busy. Natural consequences don't need a narrator. On a random Tuesday, Brooke texted, You free for tacos with the crew? Always, I wrote back. Whose turn to give a toast? Yours, she said. You didn't crash when crashing was easy. Haley added. And you let us be on your side without making it weird. I stared at the screen and felt a quiet that had nothing to do with silence. 7 p.m., I wrote. I'll bring the appetite. At dinner, Nate clucked his tongue and tried to act like he hadn't been worried. Jess bumped my shoulder and said, You look 10 years younger, which I refused to admit I liked hearing. Haley rolled her eyes at Nate's joke and ordered extra chips. Brooke held court about a disaster date that made everyone laugh like we were paid to. Later that night, I drove home on streets that had stopped feeling like checkpoints. The house lights glowed like normal house lights. I pulled into the driveway, killed the engine, and sat for half a minute without needing to fix anything in my head. I thought about how it started. A paper bag, a line about football, how easy it would have been to start begging for crumbs and call it love. How tempting it is to argue your way out of disrespect because arguing feels like effort and effort feels like care. The truth is drier than that. Care without respect is just noise with nice plates. You could say I got lucky because two people decided they valued the mirror more than the mask. You could say I played it smart because I moved my pieces before someone else moved them for me. Both would be true. I'm not a hero. I'm a man who didn't accept a version of life where I'm the extra in my own house. Sometimes people ask if I'd ever sit down with Madison and talk it out. The answer is no. We already said everything we needed to, most of it without words. She used a door. I used one too. Mine closes and stays closed. I sleep fine. In the mornings, I drink my coffee without checking if someone is leaving me for the girls. On Sundays, I grill. On Thursdays, we play cards. I'm seeing someone now, a woman named Dana who laughs with her whole face and shows up when she says she will. We take it slow and don't pretend that patience is the same as permission to be careless. She likes the shop and brings the guys donuts without making it a performance. The dog from next door has apparently adopted me. He wanders over whenever Greg's gate is open, sits by the grill, and judges my timing. If this sounds like victory, it's not the kind that needs a parade. It's the kind where the man you were at the start wouldn't recognize the quiet, but would respect the cost. I didn't win anything from Madison. I didn't want a trophy. I wanted my time back. The last message I got from her was a single line. You really closed the door. I didn't reply. She knows the answer. Everyone who mattered that night already heard it. Doors closed. Take care.